I think that we should read literature because it brings us joy, and because, especially novels, which are my special subject of study in literature, it provides us with an escape from the world that we live in, an escape into a fictional world that we co-create with the author in our imagination, and which has a refreshing quality of experience. And if, as a side effect of that experience, that refreshment that takes us away from the world, we come back with an improved sense of other people's perspectives, points of view, and experiences that are quite different from our own, and even ideas about how to move in the world that might be changed from that experience, that is a side benefit. But I think the main benefit is in the imaginative work of co-creation that a reader is involved in novel reading. I think that people who have a high degree of empathy are often attracted to novel reading, in part because novel reading invites us to empathize and to exercise through character identification and other forms of imagining our human empathy. If a person has very little empathy or no empathy to start with, I very much doubt that a course of novel reading would solve that problem. Furthermore, I think a person who is a low empathy individual may find the activity of novel reading, that imaginative co-creation, that immersion in a fictional world, not particularly pleasurable, perhaps an alien experience, and unlikely to produce the kinds of ethical effects that people hope for when they think that novels are magic pills that can be used to solve society's problems. Well, the task of the academic study of literature is multifarious. There's not just one thing that we do. We seek to understand the lives of authors and the circumstances out of which literary works from really thousands of years arose. We interpret difficult works that are not obvious as to their meanings on first perusal. We supplement the published works with new discoveries from the archive of works that have not been previously known. And we offer theoretical engagement with the formal qualities and the theoretical engagements of the novels themselves, or the literary works themselves. So when we're teaching literature, we're opening up many different avenues to discovery, some of them contextual, some of them theoretical or philosophical, some of them formal. My own experience as a scholar and as a teacher is most oriented towards formal understanding. I think that novelists have a toolkit of making out of which they construct the fictional worlds that they invite readers to enter in. And I think that understanding what those tools are and how they're used and what the formal choices that are made in terms of technique might do differently in the recipient reader is an interesting project to discover. When talking about poetry, I think most people understand that it makes sense to understand how poetry is put together, and it's been my work to do that kind of work with narrative fiction. How is it put together? How does it mean what it means when it reaches its co-creator, the reader? I think that for the perspective of literary studies, interdisciplinarity means many things and it points in many directions. So there's a kind of interdisciplinarity that's quite typical of literary studies where we reach to our colleagues in history in order to understand historical contexts and the context for the writing of the works that we study. The kind of interdisciplinary work that I do is particularly interested in what not just one reader, the character that we often refer to as the reader, but many readers in real life actually experience when they read fiction. So psychologists have tools for studying narrative impact on larger groups of people, and that can help us in literary studies to redress the balance, because we have a habit of extrapolating from our own introspection and then putting a label on that introspection that is not entirely honest. We say, the reader. The reader discovers, or the reader feels, or the reader encounters, And maybe that's what one reader discovers or feels or encounters. But with the tools of psychology and the study of larger groups of readers, we can come to a better sense of how those forms and techniques and choices that narrative artists make actually work in a larger population of people.